At Volkswagen Lease Summit, car buying's as easy as 1, 2, 3. All our new cars are priced to lease at $199, $299, or $399 a month. Plus, we have rates as low as 1.9% for 60 months and used cars for every budget. We make car buying easy. Get to VWLeaseSummit.com.
Has the concert ticket bubble finally burst? That is the speculation out there as we roll through the 9 o'clock hour here on KCMO Talk Radio. This coming down from multiple outlets in the last couple of days that big-time concerts are being canceled. They are being shrunk in terms of where they're being held, and prices are down across the board. So here are some numbers I want to share with you as we look at the secondary market. SeatGeek said in an email to NBC News this week that the average resale ticket price to attend a summer concert is down to $213. Last year at this time, it was $257 a pop. This week
resale, though, right?
Resale, yes. Okay, secondary market. Yep.
Thank you.
On top of that, this past weekend, Jennifer Lopez announcing she was canceling her 2024 tour, citing a desire to spend more time with her family. You buying that? No. I was going to make
the old one used to be, they got to be on the David Letterman show, so we're going to... So.
Now it's all about the family.
Yeah.
These people love their families, don't
they?
they?
I didn't think of that last week.
I thought Harrison Butker
I'm going to
was
go
only...
ahead and set up a big tour through Tokyo and everywhere. Oh, never mind.
I really want to be with my family, actually. Meanwhile, the Black Keys announced they were abandoning a stadium tour in favor of a series of shows at smaller venues.
Gee, go figure.
Yeah. So some of this is obviously anecdotal, but the money is obviously slowing down on the secondary market for summer concerts. And on top of that, here's what NBC News writes. Many of these tours that are being sold through Ticketmaster and its parent company Live Nation are reporting while they had a big first quarter, they have concerns about the second quarter, which we currently find ourselves in right now. And this is obviously when concerts start to get hot and heavy. There's a lot of shows available out there. And you have multiple outlets reporting that some of these shows are starting to slow down. Now, the top shows are doing just fine. Like the cream of the crop are doing just fine. Olivia Rodrigo's Guts Tour is averaging resale price of $571.
Wow.
I know John's going to that one.
Well, that one's coming, yeah. T-Mobile Center.
And the next highest, $409 to see Morgan Wallen. He's also doing 2 shows here at Arrowhead. What do you don't get the Morgan Wallen thing, do you?
No, I have a hard time as a boomer who paid $5.50 for a concert ticket understanding how this. Eyewitness didn't live and go $20, $30, $50. I kept saying it, and it's like people who smoke cigarettes. You swear you're going to quit at some point, but you keep paying.
Well, as the article goes on the note, part of what's happening here is that no one actually makes money on their music anymore.
Yeah,
it used to be the tour would support selling the music. Whereas now, the music supports selling the tour. That's where the money is made. The money is not made through radio royalties or Spotify or YouTube. The money is made on these tours. So the business model has changed for these musicians. Now they got to get their money on tour. They're not going to get their money on album sales because nobody buys any albums anymore, except for, of course, John and a handful of others who are still buying albums out there. So it's changed. So why? Well, as NBC News notes, and also this article I was reading on Forbes, people are finally starting to feel the pinch. In the post-COVID era, when everybody was locked up and they had all their, funny money from the government, they were willing to spend more money than normal for concerts. They were willing to go out there and say, you know what, screw it. I've been cooped up for a year. I'm going out to see my favorite artist, and I'm going to pay whatever it takes. Well, now inflation is starting to creep up, as it has been for the better part of 2+ years. The money is drying up. People are putting more of their lifestyle on their credit cards, and they're realizing there are so many shows, there are so many concerts, they got to pick and choose what they want, and they can't drop $200, $300, $400 a ticket anymore on a concert. They just can't do it, John.
Yeah, it's the greed. Remember when we had the COVID cancellation, so we had a bunch of backlogs of concerts coming. The Billy Joel, Stevie Nicks, right?
Yes.
The Poison, the Royal Stadium one, Cheap Trick, and Joan Jett. Lots of shows got pushed back, so you waited a year or maybe 2 years to see shows that you'd already bought tickets for, right?
Yeah.
So you had... If you go to a couple of shows a year, you're like, oh, well, I was going this year. Oh, wait, Elton John's coming next year to make good. So, it hits you that way, too.
It does.
Right.
So experts say recent economic trends in the live music industry, especially the type of consolidation the Justice Department is now targeting, have also translated into fewer, smaller-sized venues. That's made it more difficult for a given tour date to make financial sense for the artist, the venue, and the promoter. If there is uncertainty about all stakeholders being able to at least break even, the show might end up getting canceled. Now, I'm looking at it from afar, and I'm just saying there's only a couple of people that I would pay hundreds of dollars a ticket to see. I did it for Springsteen when he was here a year and a half ago, and I would do it again because that's my guy, and you can remind me on the text line all you want about his political leanings, and I still don't care. I separate the athlete and the musician from the politics.
Bruce was a Democrat before Pete was born.
Yeah, that is true, actually.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, there's a couple of people I'll do it for. But most of these artists, I mean, first off, I understand I'm a little different because I got 3 little kids at home right now. But even if I didn't, there's only so many artists I'm going to dole out even $200 to go see. And it's not about, what you can afford. It's just about justifying any of this. How can you justify sitting in section 333 at Arrowhead to watch a guy who looks like an ant on the stage sing songs for 2 hours? To say you're there? I mean, Taylor Swift's resale was $800 a pop for the worst seat in the house at Arrowhead last summer. And she did 2 shows. Now, I understand that Taylor Swift's on her own planet. I get that. But Morgan Wallen, the same thing. I was looking up his shows here at Arrowhead for later this summer, and I'm not going to be here during these shows, but I was just curious last night when I saw the story. And you're talking about the worst seats in the house are $150 on StubHub, and that's before the ridiculous fees. So you're really talking about $200, get in the door priced to sit all the way at the top of section 346, and maybe you can see him on the big screen, John. That's it.
You better chop her in because parking's going to cost you.
Well, yeah, that's
exactly. It's going to be easier to chop her in and drop down into your seat than to pay and hike up.
That's exactly right. The text line is 913-408-7957. Pete, the cause of the price of concert tickets going down is undoubtedly Bidenomics. That is from Larry. Well, I think it's just Bidenomics catching up, I think is what it is. Because I would have people say to me last summer who were kind of Biden, they were always giving him excuses on the economy. They would say, well, look at everyone's going to see concerts. Concerts are still selling out at $300, $400, $500 a ticket. What do you mean the economy's bad? There was still pent-up demand. People were still in the early phases of realizing what was happening and saying, you know what, I'll put it on the credit card. Well, as this continues on into year 3 of these tough inflationary times, everyone's got their breaking point. And I think we're hitting it for many Americans, John.
Well, we're talking about your entertainment dollars. Sure, people were going to concerts. Who's going to the movies?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So your dollars, you just have to decide where you're spending them, and a fun time out, maybe I'm getting dinner. You're going to make a night of it, not quite so much at a movie. But a concert like that, I'll see Taylor Swift. She won't be back for 3 or 4 years, even if I could afford it.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Yeah.
Those are the decisions that people make. Mm-hmm. It's like people, going to restaurants. Now they're downgrading the quality of restaurant that they're going to based on what they can afford and what they're willing to afford. That's how this always plays out. You got X amount of discretionary income, and you got to pick and choose how you're going to spend it. But I got to imagine there are thousands of us right now in Kansas City who suddenly are like, you know what? I would go to that show at a certain price point, but I'm not doing it for what they're asking for these ticket prices. And that's part of the NBC article as well, where basically these acts, they thought the pent-up demand would still be there this summer, and it has not been there for some of these shows. And by the way, great chance to plug the fact that we've got Country Stampede 3-day passes coming up in 1 hour on Ray Stevens' show on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. And next week, we are going to have Kenny Chesney tickets as well. So we got them rocking and rolling here on KCMO Talk Radio, 95.7 FM. We'll save you the money. That way you don't have to spend $200, $300, $400 on tickets. That's what we're here for on 95.7 FM, helping you out this summer on KCMO Talk Radio. Our caller of the day is coming up at the bottom of the hour, but I also want to hear from you on just how your lifestyle has changed, whether it's concert tickets, shows, or otherwise, as people continue to feel the pinch. These are real-life stories and now real-life examples the media is writing about, and it's impacting every single one of us. Pete Mundo on KCMO Talk Radio. Yeah, the egos of these bands, as John, Mark, and I were talking about during the break here, also is a factor in why some of these summer shows are getting canceled. They're getting downgraded. They're canceling certain stops on their tours. I think they overvalued the last 3 summers when there has been tremendous demand for concert tickets in the wake of COVID, especially 22 and 23. But now things are starting to slow down. People can't afford a lot. Groceries, never mind tickets to concerts, especially when you're trying to, let's say, fill up a T-Mobile Center when maybe your audience is probably only realistically half of that in a place like Kansas City. That's a factor here as well, as NBC News writes how the resale price for tickets on the secondary market is down 21% from this time last year. And while some of that might be tied to mega tours not going on tour in the U.S., like Taylor Swift and Beyonce, it still is part of a broader problem. People are not willing to spend what they did 1 and 2 years ago on concert tickets. I mean, I mentioned Springsteen because I saw him here in Kansas City 18 months ago. Now, it was his first time on tour since 2016, so it had been 7 years. He's in his 70s. You don't know how many more of these you got left. But I remember, seeing him on his 2016 tour, gosh, I want to say 3 or 4 times. And each time I spent $120 to $175. Well, the one here in Kansas City was 3x that at T-Mobile. It's just, it's crazy what they were getting away with. But it's slowing down in some cases. It may not slow down for the top acts. As we noted, Olivia Rodrigo and Morgan Wallen, they're getting over $400 or $500 a ticket on the resale market. But for those who are not at the top right now, it's slowed down. Chris in Kansas City is on KCMO. What's up, Chris? Good morning.
Hey, good morning. I think this is a really important conversation. And I think if you look at this, just kind of the Democrats' probably long-term approach and what they're trying to get after is just more and more dependence on government. You think about small businesses trying to survive through this, increased wages, cost of gas, cost of living. Ultimately, it's not about Biden trying to have this amazing economic plan that I think really helps the economy thrive. I think it's actually the opposite. It's how can we have such a bad economy that more and more people begin to become more dependent and want the government to bail them out. That's really the problem. It's a philosophical problem, and I just want to give you a couple of examples, and you can run with this. But like our family over the last 6 years, we've got really comfortable with certain incomes. My businesses have taken off over that period of time, and we've done really well. But we've also, over the last 2 years, we've had to evaluate, the expenses that we do have, because even though we're making good money, our life has gotten really expensive with the same things that we were doing over the last 6 years. And you think about our kids, they're all in private school. We've made the decision as a family, we can't do that. And I know that's a privileged statement, right? But we also made that decision based on where we felt that was the most important thing for our kids. Mm-hmm. And so the cost to go to that school has risen 15 to 20% per year. And if you've got 4 kids in that school, that becomes almost impossible to say, hey, can we scrape across enough money to live in this house, to provide for our kids, to eat, and go to the school that we really, really love, right? And then you think about food. The cost of feeding 4 kids, that has went up astronomically.
Oh, yeah.
Just driving around Kansas City to go to your job, that is more expensive. My wife, she's a therapist, and she's consistently driven 30, 35 minutes every single day. Well, that cost, that's doubled and tripled over the last years. Taxes, it's just a non-ending story. And so people like myself that, hey, we've lived a good life. We have worked hard for that. But at the same time, it has gotten incredibly difficult to manage that lifestyle and continue the life that you're trying to create for yourself because it's now so expensive.
Listen,
I'll hang up and let you kind of dissolve that. But I just think it's an interesting time, and I think the philosophy of the Democrats, that's what we've got to fight against.
Chris, thank you so much. You hit on a lot of great points. And on top of that, I do think, and I think that this is across the board, sad to say, in general, people are getting more comfortable with more government in many facets of their lives. And it's a slow creep that's happening, and people are just getting adjusted and used to it. I think that's happening. But I also think your broader point's a good one. Even people like yourself who have had great financial success and can afford putting kids in private school are feeling that creep, feeling that pinch. I mean, I'm embarrassed to say with 3 kids now what the grocery bill is every month. Now, we try to eat healthy and do all that, but still, I mean, you know, you look at the Costco bill and you're like, holy smokes. Which is why, by the way, the approval ratings for a guy like Joe Biden, whether it's entirely fair or not, isn't the point. You're the guy in the White House, you get the blame. Continues to go down amongst Gen X and millennials. What do Gen X and millennials have in common right now? They're the ones who have kids in the house. Boomers don't. You know, I know a lot of people who don't have kids in the house anymore. You're in your home. It's paid off. You're in a very different place, and God bless you for it, but you're in a very different place than those of us who are going to the grocery store, raising kids, trying to get them through school, signing them up for sports, getting them from A to B every single afternoon. It's a very different place for the person who does not have kids in the home right now when it comes to truly experiencing inflation than those who do, where you feel it every single time you go to the grocery store. That's not the case for people who either are on the very younger end of the demo or on the upper end of the demo. Mike's in Olathe. Hey, Mike, go ahead. You're on KCMO.
Yeah, so my wife and I, we were going to go see the Stones, and, you know, they were $200 each for tickets, which you were at nosebleeds and couldn't see anything. But I'm fine with that. But then when you get to the end of it, there was a $100 service fee for each ticket. And I'm like, I'm out. You know, and kind of going back to the last guy, well, it's kind of just a symptom of everything else. I don't know if this is true, but I read or heard, like, in the last 9 months, the United States printed out more money than from when we started back in the 1700s. So somebody's got to pay that bill. I mean, we're at $40 trillion. You think it's going to get any better? I mean, you're going to have probably at some point hyperinflation. I mean, you know, you saw back in Germany where they had a wheelbarrow buying a loaf of bread. Now, I know that's the extreme, but I don't think people really don't think that can happen. But, man, I mean, look at it right now. I mean, I think we do okay. But, you know, man, when you go to the grocery store at Costco and it's $350,
Yep.
It's like, who in the hell can go to a concert?
Thank you, Mike. You're right. Listen, I think there's a lot of folks who also are just battening down the hatches a little bit here and seeing how it plays out the next few months. And I wouldn't blame anybody at all for taking that approach.
At Volkswagen Lease Summit, car buying's as easy as 1, 2, 3. All our new cars are priced to lease at $199, $299, or $399 a month. Plus, we have rates as low as 1.9% for 60 months and used cars for every budget. We make car buying easy. Get to VWLeaseSummit.com.